Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show. My name is Leon Jones, and tonight I got another educational video for you. And what I want to talk about tonight is the United States Constitution, and I'll put other topics like Elon Musk and the Donald Trump situation and Democrats. That's also going to be part of this commentary. But what I really want to do is get people to understand what the Constitution really is. Because I hear a number of individuals in the mainstream media, they keep talking about democracy, democracy, democracy. We are not a democracy, we are a republic. Remember, a democracy is where you have the majority rule. But you hear not just the Democrats, but the Republicans. Now we may have some we may have some democratic processes, but we're not a democracy. Again, I hear both Democrats and Republicans when they get on television, they're talking about this great democracy. Well, we have never been a democracy. And just like the Bible, a number of people really don't read the Constitution. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to talk about the Constitution tonight. Now, it's very important that you understand the Constitution. Now, again, I got this information from Robert Michael. This is in conjunction with the Dirkskin Congressional Center. I just put a little bit of my spin into this PowerPoint presentation, but regardless, I just believe that individuals need to understand the Constitution, because when you leave this country and you go into another country, you are not protected under the United States Constitution. Now, again, the Constitutionist Project was funded by a Robert H. Michael grant in conjunction with the Erskine Congressional Center. And of course, I'm Leon Jones. I actually put a little bit of my thought into this PowerPoint presentation, but he gets the credit. But this is a learning tool. So basically, when we talk about the Constitution, it was written in Philadelphia. And the original intent was to revise the articles. James Madison, everybody's heard of James Madison. He was the father of the Constitution. And 39 men signed the Constitution. There is the preamble or the introduction to the Constitution. Now, the main two questions found in the preamble are, why are they writing it? To form a more perfect union. What are the goals to be reached? Establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, and provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. Now, the Constitution is divided into three areas. You have the articles, they're the major divisions, then the sections, the divisions of an article, and then you have the clauses. Now, you see a copy of the original Constitution or the Declaration of Independence on this PowerPoint. May not come in too good, but you can always find a copy on the website. And if you find a copy of the Declaration of Independence, take time to read it, because you have a number of talking heads out there who believe they know the Constitution, but I don't believe they read it themselves. It's just like the Bible. Do you believe a lot of these pastors know what they're reading in the Bible? Hell no, they don't. They're just citing certain Bible verses and certain chapters to appease their members. Now, Article 1 is the legislative branch. Section 1, what is a Congress? Well, number one, bicameral legislature. There are two houses, a Senate and a House of Representatives. Section 2, House of Representatives. Clause 1, a representative serves a 2-year term. Clause 2, what are the qualifications for a member of the U.S. House of Representatives? Number 1, be at least 25 years old. Number 2, be a 7-year citizen of the United States. And number 3, must be a resident of the state one is elected in. So I live here in Indiana. So if I wanted to run for Congress, I would have to be elected here in the state of Indiana. I cannot be elected in the state of Michigan or Ohio or Illinois. Clause 3, who determines the amount of representatives each state will receive? That's Congress. So why does California have more members in the House of Representatives than Minnesota? Discuss the Great Compromise. And what if half of California's population moved to Minnesota? Then you have reapportionment. That's creating new districts every 10 years to adjust for population changes. That's also known as gerrymandering. Now, reapportionment, and here's how it works. It comes from the census that's taken every 10 years. And basically, when we deal with Congress, Congress totals the number of representatives in each state, and they will get a total that will equal 435. Congress will notify the state legislatures of any changes. And state legislatures will determine new district boundaries. And new districts will allow for new elections for the House of Representatives. Now, you notice what I just said? Everything is really deferred back to the states. People don't think so. The House of Representatives in the federal government will get back to the state legislatures. So you have to understand what's going on in your state. Now, I just mentioned it earlier, gerrymandering, and that's redrawing district lines to favor a political party. Then there's one man, one vote. Each district has to have about the same number of people. Now, because of population, there are 7 states that only have one U.S. representative in the House. It's North Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, Vermont, Alaska, Delaware, and South Dakota. But those states also have 2 senators. Clause 4, what happens if a representative dies in office? Well, just like a senator, like J.D. Vance, who was a senator of Ohio, he became Trump's vice president. So what happens? Well, usually a governor will issue an election to fill the vacancy. That's called a special election. Now, in case of a senator, the governor of that state will put a senator in that old senator's place if a senator were to die or become president or vice president. And then they will also have a special election as well. Now, Clause 5, where does the impeachment process start? Starts in the House of Representatives. Andrew Johnson, believe it or not, was the first U.S. president to be impeached, but fell 1 vote shy of the Senate's conviction. Now, once the Senate convicts you, the Senate can remove you as the president. Now, it almost happened in 1974 when Richard Nixon was president, but he resigned before official impeachment could take place. Also, Bill Clinton. Impeachment articles were passed by the U.S. House of Reps, but the Senate found him not guilty. Well, the funny thing, the same thing happened to Donald Trump. The House of Representatives found Donald Trump guilty on the articles of impeachment, but not guilty in the Senate. Now, right now, the information that I'm giving you has some old names, and I've heard of a number of these names as well. Now, this goes, I believe right now we're in the 113th Congress. Well, this goes back to the 108th Congress. So at that time, Dennis Hastert was the Speaker of the House. Now, the Speaker of the House controls the discussion of the floor. And you have the majority leader. At that time, it was Tom DeLay, helps the Speaker, and it leads his party. Then you had Roy Blunt, the majority whip. Now, the whip helps the majority leader. Then you have the minority leader. That was Nancy Pelosi, serves as a watchdog over the majority party. And then you had Maryland Congressman Steny Hoyer. He is the minority whip, and that person helps the minority leader. Section 3, the Senate, Clause 1. How is a senator different from a member of the House of Representatives? Well, number one, senators' terms are 6 years, and there's one voter per senator. Now, as in Congress, which deals with the population, where you have 435 congressional personnel, well, the senators, each state has 2 senators to represent them. So there are 50 states. So there are 2 senators per state, like I said. So all states get the same amount of senators. So there are approximately, well, there are not approximately, there are actually 100 senators for each state. And this is where you get the total of 100 for the Senate, 435 for the House of Representatives. And this is what adds up to equal your electoral college votes as well. Now, originally, senators were chosen by state legislatures. Today, chosen by direct election under the 17th Amendment. Clause 2, it is possible for both senators from one state to be up for election at the same time. Is it possible? No. No. However, each senator has a 6-year term, and the reason why that doesn't happen is they're staggered terms, because all of the members from the first Senate did not get elected on a 6-year term. Founding fathers wanted the Senate to have experienced members, so they created, just like I said, a staggered election. So the first class was a 2-year term. The second class equals a 4-year term. The third class equals a 6-year term. Never will senators' term from one state be up for re-election at the same time. There's the answer to that question. Is it possible for both senators from one state to be up for election at the same time? Absolutely not. Clause 3, what are the qualifications for a senator? Must be 30 years old, be a 9-year citizen of the United States, and be a resident of the state you're elected from. Clause 4, the vice president, Dick Cheney, at that time of the United States, is the president of the Senate. Very little power and seldom seen on a Senate floor. Now, in case there is a tie when it comes to votes, and that happened during the confirmation of Pete Hegseth for the United States Secretary of Defense, it was a 50-50 tie. J.D. Vance had to break the tie. Same with Kamala Harris. When it came to inflation, the taxes, it was 50-50 tie. She broke the tie. So the president of the Senate only votes if there is a tie. Again, I said senator. The president of the Senate, who is the vice president, only votes if there is a tie. Clause 5, officers of the Senate, president of the pro tempore, presides temporarily when the vice president is not available. Very little power. The majority leader controls the agenda of the majority party. The majority whip helps the majority leader. The minority leader, a watchdog function over the majority party. And a minority whip helps the minority leader. And some of these individuals, Ted Stevens, he's gone. Bill Frist is gone. Mitch McConnell's still there. Tom Daschle is out, and Harry Reid is out. Number 6 is trial of impeachments. Does the Senate actually serve as the jury in impeachment proceedings? The answer is yes. The Senate tries impeachments and they act as a jury. The House of Representatives introduces the articles of impeachment. Now, the House needs a majority, which is 218, to bring up charges. The Senate needs 2/3 majority to convict. And this is rarely, even though Donald Trump was convicted twice. And that was based on partisanship, because at that time, the Democrats had the House. And I also believe they have the Senate, but you're rarely going to get 2/3 of the Senate. Why? You know, one thing with how the government is set up through the Constitution, there's a lot of partisan politics going on, a lot of lobbyist groups going on, but this is the education so you can see how everything is set up and how it's supposed to work, although it doesn't always work that way. So I move on. Clause 7, what happens if someone is impeached? Well, a guilty conviction on the articles of impeachment means that the president is going to be removed from office. But who else can be impeached? I believe judges of the Supreme Court can be impeached as well. Now, a U.S. president cannot be pardoned if found guilty by 2/3 of the Senate, part of the checks and balances system. Section 4, when does Congress meet in D.C.? Clause 1, when are the national elections held? At one time, federal elections were held not in uniform. Some states held them on different days and months. National Election Day was set by the Congress first Tuesday after the first Monday of November. Clause 2. So when does Congress meet? Must meet one time a year. Why? 1933, under the 20th Amendment, established January 3rd as the meeting date, which is a 2-year working period. Clause 1, under Section 5, Rules of Procedures. Can an elected official be removed from office? Yes. Each house determines the qualifications of their members. So we have Brigham Roberts, 1901 polygamist from Utah. The Senate refused to seat him. We had Victor Berger, 1919 socialist from Wisconsin. The House refused to seat him. Adam Powell, 1967, African American, who was allegedly misappropriated federal funds, so the House refused to seat him. Notice allegedly. So we don't know if he did or not. Then we had Powell versus McCormick, 1969. South Carolina allowed Powell his seat in the House of Representatives. Under Clause 2, does the House and Senate following the same, do they follow the same proceedings and rules? No. The House of Representatives and the senators, and these are Congress, but 2 different areas of Congress, they have 2 different sets of rules. We'll have different rules. Again, the House of Representatives and the Senate have different rules. Then you have the filibuster. That's delaying a bill through the use of discussion. I went over that last week when I talked about how a bill is created. Now, the Senate has filibusters. However, the House is more stringent on how they control debate, so they don't have filibusters. Now, you had a gentleman by the name of Strom Thurmond, had the longest filibuster, 24 hours and 18 minutes. Now, as I mentioned last week, you have the cloture rule. That's a rule in the Senate that will end the filibuster if 60 senators agree to vote for the closing of debate. Then there's the censure. That's punishing a member of Congress by taking away some of their power or seniority. Clause 3, can I get information about how a member of Congress voted? Yes. Look under the Congressional Journal. It's published at the end of the session, and it contains the bare facts about the session. Again, the Congressional Journal. It's published at the end of the session, and it contains the bare facts about the session. Then there's the Congressional Record, published daily, and it includes word for word what people had to say. And then there's the Sunshine Law. That means all meetings must be open to the public, and all records about the session are open to the public as well. Under Clause 4, can the House and Senate adjourn at different times? Adjourn to stop meeting. Consent of the other house if you're going to adjourn for more than 3 days. Lawmaking process would stop only if one house adjourns, and it's usually a joint adjournment. Section 6, privileges and restrictions. Under Clause 1, what is the salary and benefits for a member of Congress? Compensation. Members of Congress will be paid $150,000 per year. Then you have congressional immunity. Can't be arrested for minor crimes when traveling to or from Congress. Breach of peace, treason, felony are not exempt from this immunity. And that's why the Democrats can get away with going against this country. They're not exempted. So these are minor crimes. And they can't be arrested when traveling. Now you think about that. To or from Congress. So under that, you look at that, the breach of peace, treason, felony. They're not exempt from this immunity. So that means the Congress members are protected. Then you have slander, saying something that is not true. They can do this in the House and Senate, done so that speech is limited or censored. Then you have franking, it's free mail service. This is where you're going to get this education from this video. Keep watching. Other privileges, salary, travel expense account, office in DC and their state, special allowance for stationery, phone calls, faxes, they get a pension, some tax exemptions, 15% of their salary for speaking engagements, unlimited income from book royalties. Now, if you really look at that, seems to me like it's a conflict of interest, but this is why members of the House and Senate never want to leave. All that compensation, they can come in making $150,000, $175,000 a year and leave millionaires just because of what I just read. Under Clause 2, can a member of Congress also be a federal judge? No. Why? Because that's a separation of powers. Cannot hold two offices at once from different branches of government. Method 7, method of passing bills. This is going to be some review for what I talked about last week. Clause 1, where do tax bills start? All tax bills start in the House. Well, the House also holds the purse strings. Clause 2, how does a bill become a law? Procedures vary slightly in each House, and bills must go through committee work before they get to the floor. Here's a simple overview. First method, passes one House by majority vote, passes the second House by majority vote, goes to the president signs it into the law. Again, goes from the majority vote of the House, goes through the House again, actually goes to the Senate. This PowerPoint, there was somebody, whoever wrote this PowerPoint, made a mistake, so I'm going to correct it. Basically, a bill goes for a House majority vote, it passes, it goes to the Senate by majority vote, then it goes to the president, and then the president signs the bill into law. Now, there's a second method. Passes one House majority vote, passes House majority vote or Senate majority vote, goes to the president, president vetoes, goes back to the House and Senate where it was originated, and then you must get a 2/3 vote to override the veto, and the veto, once the veto is overridden, then the bill becomes law. And the third method passes one House by majority vote, passes second House by majority vote, goes to the president. President delays action for 10 days, excluding Sundays. Then the bill becomes law. It looks like in this PowerPoint, after reading it again, they shouldn't say two houses of Congress. They're chambers, not houses. They're chambers, which should be in this PowerPoint. But nevertheless, that's how the process actually works. Pocket veto. What if Congress adjourns and a bill is not signed by the president? Well, passes one House by majority vote, passes second House by majority vote, goes to the president, delays action for 10 days, and that excludes Sunday. Within that time, Congress adjourns, bill does not become law. Reagan had 8 pocket vetoes. Then under clause 3, can Congress express their opinion without creating a formal law? Yes, under a resolution, which is a formal expression of opinion or will. So there's a simple resolution that deals with the matters of one house. Then you have concurrency, and that deals with both houses. Joint deals with both houses, and it goes to the president for approval. Section 8, powers delegated to Congress under clause 1. Why can Congress collect taxes? Clause 1, that's not Texas, that's taxes. I said Texas by accident. Clause 1, why can Congress collect taxes? Congress can collect taxes for 3 purposes: to pay off debts, provide defense, provide for common welfare. That's why Congress can collect taxes. And again, clause 1, Congress can collect taxes for 3 main purposes: debts, defense, and common welfare. That's why, again, Congress, particularly the House of Representatives, holds the purse strings. Can Congress borrow money? They can borrow money on the credit of the United States. Selling bonds is an example. Debt, the total money that the government owes, currently over $6 trillion. I believe it's more than that. Then there's a deficit, yearly amount of money that the government owes. Clause 3, can Congress regulate trade? Interstate, trade between 2 or more states. Intrastate, trade within a state. Congress can only regulate interstate trade. So if I wanted to trade something within the state of Indiana, they can't regulate it. But if I wanted to trade something with Illinois, Congress can regulate it. Clause 4, naturalization and bankruptcy. Now you have to be a naturally born citizen in the United States. Also, a naturalized citizen is a foreigner becoming a citizen by following the rules set by Congress. And this is why there is an issue with all the illegals. They came over here against the law, so they are illegal. Now the Democrats are trying to fight for them so the Democrats can basically put them on the census and give them free stuff so they will vote for them, and it will change the parties forever. But that's what a naturalized citizen is. And apparently the Democrats don't look at that. It's becoming a citizen by following the rules of Congress that they set. Then you have your what we call the law of land, which is called just solely, which is law of land. You're born here, you are a citizen. Then you have just syngenes, law of blood. If one of your parents is an American citizen, then you are as well. This is why illegals try to get here and get somebody born right here in America But if you're an illegal and you have somebody born here in America, they're an American citizen, not you. You're still illegal. And then the law of blood. If you are an illegal and you marry somebody who's legal and then have a child, well, law of blood is one of the parents are legal. So that person is an American citizen as well, law of blood. Now, as I said before, like an Elon Musk is a naturalized citizen from South Africa. Arnold Schwarzenegger, yes, they can get as high as running for governor or mayor or senate, but they can never be president of the United States because they're known as naturalized citizens. And bankruptcy, courts can declare bankruptcy. Clause 5, can a bank make money? No, Congress will make money. Congress will set up our weights and measures. English system was established in 1831. Foot, pound, mile, that's the English system. 1866. If states wanted to, they could go on to the metric system. Well, we don't actually have the metric system. All the countries around us have the metric system. I believe we are one of the 3 or 4 countries in the world that still have an English system. But we do have metric written on some of our cans. And basically, if you use 10 and there are other multiple factors that you can convert from one to the other. And again, I said we're one of 3 or 4 countries. We are the largest country, however, that's not on the metric system. But overall, we are one of 3 or 4 of the countries that's not on the metric system. Under Clause 6, Congress will punish counterfeiters, minting edge. That's the lip on a penny and a nickel. Clause 7, mail service. Federal government will establish a mail service. Clause 8, Congress promotes interventions. Copyrights secures rights of ownership for the life of the owner, publications and literature. And you have patents, secures the rights of inventors generally for 20 years. Clause 9 establishes and abolishes courts. Clause 10, Congress will punish for crimes committed on the water. Clause 11, only Congress can declare war, power to many people as opposed to one. Then you have your Marquis and reprisal, allowing pirates. Treaty of Paris outlaws this. Then you have your war powers resolution, 1973, attempted to limit presidential power of war. Clause 12, Congress controls the power of the purse regarding the military, and it can't allow stockpiling of money. Clause 13, Congress can maintain a navy. Clause 14, Congress establishes rules for the military, court martial, court proceedings that follow military laws, military tribunals. Clause 15, Congress governs state militias, the National Guard. National Guard can be deployed for 3 reasons. Why? Execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, which are riots, and repel invasions. Clause 16, Congress allows the states to appoint National Guard officers to train their own soldiers and airmen. Clause 17, who controls the District of Columbia? Washington, in the District of Columbia, is a federal city under the control of Congress. Since 1973, people of the city elect their own officials, and that's the people who live in the District of Columbia, known as Washington, D.C. Now, under Clause 18, necessary and proper cause, Congress has the power to establish any rules they deem necessary and proper. Then you have elastic clause. It expands the power of Congress. Section 9, powers denied to the federal government. Clause 1, what about the issues of slavery? Well, Congress stopped the importation of slaves way back in 1808. Use the word such persons as opposed to slaves. Clause 2, can I be thrown in jail for having blue eyes? No. Habeas corpus, you have the body. You have the right to test the legality of your detention. Judge is not concerned with guilt or innocence. The writ can be suspended in times of rebellion, invasion, or the public safety requires it. That happened during the Civil War when Abraham Lincoln was president. Clause 3, Congress cannot pass a bill of attainder, and that is a legislative act against the named person. That's what the bill of attainder is. Now, Congress makes a law that says Mike Sims is a thief and will serve 25 years in prison. That is unconstitutional. Congress cannot pass an ex post facto law, which means after the fact. Example, Betty Boone sells fireworks on the 4th. On the 10th, Congress passes a law that makes it illegal to sell fireworks and tries to punish Betty for what she did on July 4th. Can't happen. Clause 4, Congress cannot put a direct tax on an individual. Why? Because the 16th Amendment will override it. Clause 5, Congress cannot tax an export. That means if we send something out to another country. Clause 6, import taxes must be the same at all ports. Clause 7, Congress controls the federal budget. Clause 8, can I receive a title of Duke or Earl of the United States? Titles of nobility will not be granted. Any gifts from foreign countries must be approved by Congress. Section 10, powers denied to the states. Clause 1, can Minnesota create an alliance with Canada? No. States cannot form treaties or alliances with any other states or countries. States cannot coin money. Clause 2, states cannot tax imports or exports without the consent of Congress. Clause 3, states cannot harbor troops in times of peace. States cannot engage in war. Article 2, we talk about the executive branch. Section 1, president and vice president. Under clause 1, how long is the president in office? 4-year terms. 1951, 22 Amendment changed it to a maximum of 2 terms or 10 years. FDR served the most years in office, which was 12. Grover Cleveland served 2 non-consecutive terms, the 22nd and the 24th president of the United States, until Donald Trump. He will now serve 2 non-consecutive terms as the 45th and the 47th president of the United States. Clause 2 is, how is the president of the United States elected? Well, they have electors, presidential voters, the electoral college, system used to elect the president. Why? The founders didn't want a pure form of democracy. They wanted a representative democracy. So you have 538, and that equals the total number of presidential electors. Must have 270 to become president. Now, how did they come up with 538? Well, I'm going to tell you how they came up with 538. Now, each state has 100 senators, and each state has a different number of representatives in the House, which total up to be 435. Well, that doesn't equal 538. That equals 435. Well, where did the other three come from? Very simple. The other three came from Washington, D.C. Yes, Washington, D.C. also has three representatives in the House, and they have three electoral college votes. That's how they came up with the 538. Now, the purpose of the electoral college is to give each state somewhat equal representation. It said somewhat equal representation. And the reason why that's put in place is so states like New York and Florida and California, Texas, under what we call a pure form of democracy, and that's when we talk about democracy, the majority rules, they put the president in power. And pure democracy means popular vote. Because, there have been some presidents, Donald Trump one, George Bush another one. They lost the popular vote, but they won the electoral college. Clause 3, former method of electoral college. This was changed by the 12th Amendment. Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr each had the same number of electoral college votes. At that time, it was 73. So the tie would go to the House of Representatives, and each state gets one vote. Again, the tie would go to the House of Representatives, and each state would get one vote. I said one votes. No. What happens if they were tied? Go to the House of Representatives, then each state would get one vote. Still have to get a majority. Election of 1860, Lincoln, Douglas, Breckinridge, Bell. Well, Lincoln had over almost 2 million popular votes and had 180 electoral college votes. In Douglas, he had 12 electoral college votes. Then you had Breckinridge, 72, but he had close to 1 million votes. And Bell, he had 500, almost 600,000 popular votes and had 39 electoral college votes. And that's when Lincoln became president. Well, at that time, Lincoln won the popular and the electoral college. Also, as we move on, close elections in history, popular votes. Well, Hayes, he had 185 electoral college votes in 1876. Tilden, 184. Then we go back to the ruckus of 2000. We had Bush and Gore. Gore had 266. Bush had 271. But you look at the popular votes. Gore won the popular votes by, it looks like, I'm going to say right around I don't know, quite a bit, but it was real close. Just over 500,000. Look at it. And then Tilden, just over 200,000. But you look at the electoral college votes. That's where it counts. So clause 4, when does the electoral college vote? Well, official ballot for president is cast by the electoral college. Electoral college casts votes on the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December. And what that is when you see the elections on television, what you're really getting is a projection. So you may have somebody running for president or Congress, and the networks will make a call, but that call is based on a projection. But some of the polls really haven't finished counting their votes. And this is why it takes a month for the electors to cast their votes. Now, under clause 5, what are the qualifications for president? Must be 35 years old, 14-year resident, natural born citizen. The first 7 presidents, however, were not natural born. The first natural born president was Martin Van Buren. The youngest was Teddy Roosevelt at 42. The youngest elected, John Kennedy at 43. The oldest, Ronald Reagan at 69. And then we have Clause 6, changed by the 25th Amendment. The amendment provides for involuntary removal of the president from his power. Clause 7, can Congress decrease the president's salary midway through his term? No. Cannot increase or decrease during term. Cannot receive any other salary from the federal government during the term. Pays taxes on the income. 2001, salary doubled to $400,000 per year. Under Clause 8, the presidential oath. Any judge can swear a president into office. Most common is the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Calvin Coolidge, sworn in by his father, a justice of the peace. Then if we go back, we have LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, sworn in on Air Force Day by a Dallas judge. And then we always read under, as I go back, so help me God. Washington added this to the oath. Section 2, powers of the president. Clause 1, what are the military powers? Well, the president is the head of the military, the commander in chief. Again, the president is the head of the military. So that we refer to the president as the commander in chief. The president can grant pardons to criminals who have committed federal crimes. And we just had the Chrisleys. Donald Trump just pardoned the Chrisleys. So many individuals were pardoned for January 6th. So that's the power that the president has when it comes to pardons. Clause 2, we talk about treaties and appointments. So the president needs approval by the U.S. Senate to create certain and specific treaties and appointments. And of course, Clause 3, what if an ambassador dies when Senate is in process? Well, if that actually happens, as we go right back here, the president can basically temporarily fill that position. That's what the president can do. Section 3, what are the duties of the president? Well, State of the Union address. The president explains the condition of the country, usually in January. Now, the president can convene and adjourn Congress in the event of a special circumstance. The main job is to see that the laws are faithfully executed. This is all under the Constitution. Section 4, we talk about impeachment. So, president, vice president, and all civil officers can be impeached. Can only be impeached for 3 things: treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Judges are civil officers that are often convicted of impeachment. And we're talking about your federal judges, your Supreme Court, which that's the highest court in the land. Now, what about Congress? Well, no, Congress persons cannot be impeached, but they can be expelled by their own house. They do not go through a formal impeachment process. Article 3, judicial branch. Section 1, federal courts, who interprets the law. Well, the judicial branch, basically, they interpret the law. Legislative, which that's your Congress, they make the law. And then executive, that's the president, enforces the law. So the judicial powers, what they do, they have the power to hear cases. And federal judges, which are your Supreme Court judges, are appointed by the president and confirmed or approved by the Senate. And that's what the Supreme Court, this is the oldest Supreme Court. Some of them are still around, some of them checked out. No Judge Thomas, he's still there. I believe he's the only one. Basically, the Supreme Court is pretty new. Section 2. On Section 2, the jurisdiction of the federal courts. Clause 1, jurisdiction. Jurisdiction, under jurisdiction, there's the power and right to apply law. We have the plaintiff, one who brings charges. The defendant is the one who is being charged. Then we have a criminal case when government is plaintiff. That's when we had California versus O.J. Simpson. Civil case between two or more people. O.J. Simpson versus the Goldman family. Clause 2. How does a case reach the Supreme Court? Well, the Supreme Court has two kinds of jurisdiction. An original. It's a case that is heard first by the Supreme Court, and then you have the appellate court, cases that are appealed by a lower court. So basically, most cases come to the Supreme Court through the appellate jurisdiction. That's the lower court. Then you have thousands of cases that are brought to the Supreme Court each year, and about 75 are heard each year. So what about the writ of certiorari? That's an order from a higher court to a lower court to see the records and proceedings of a previous case. I believe that's certiorari, writ of certiorari. Clause 3, the conduct of trials. Guarantees a trial by jury in federal courts. Then you have your extradition, running a fugitive to the state in which the crime was committed. Section 3, we talk about treason. So what is treason? Only crime defined in the Constitution, helping a nation's enemies or carrying out a war against your own country. Two ways of being convicted: confession in a courtroom or having two witnesses testify against you. Clause 2. What is the penalty for treason? Treason can only happen during time of war. Maximum penalty is death. Espionage, sabotage, conspiracy to overthrow the government are all similar to treason, but happen during times of peace. Article 4, relations among the states. Section 1, official acts. Clause 1, I live in Minnesota. Do I follow the rules of South Dakota or North Dakota? Yes, full faith and credit. Each state shall respect legal action of another state. That talks about simple things that we have, like driver's licenses, marriage licenses, speed limits, fines. Privileges of citizens. Clause 1. Can I buy a lake home in Minnesota if I live in Illinois? Absolutely. In fact, I'll give you an example of that right now. In Michigan, right along the western part of, or the eastern part of Lake Michigan, right around New Buffalo. If you go out 94 and then get on 31 or US 12, as you go up there toward Muskegon, you have a lot of Illinois people who have beach homes up there in western Michigan off the lake. Now, a state cannot discriminate against you because you're a citizen of another state. Again, you can buy a home and land in another state, but a state cannot discriminate against you because you are a citizen of another state. And then under clause 2, there's extradition. That's bringing back a fugitive. That's interstate rendition. Shall, tradition, custom, and courts have interpreted this to mean may. Governors can refuse to return a fugitive. Clause 3, fugitive slaves. It's basically non-existent. That was changed by amendment after the Civil War. Persons referred to slaves. If a slave escapes from a slave state to a free state, the slave is still not free. Well, we don't have that anymore. But if you really think about that, you had somebody escape from an area of Maryland where the Underground Railroad is to somewhere in the north, although we don't know if anything happened, but it's less likely, but they're still not free. And sometimes if you had papers, you, although you were free with papers as a slave, you have individuals that would tell you you're not free. You still have to listen to what they tell you, or something would happen. So you have everything that it was made through these laws, but remember, some people make laws, but does everybody respect the law? Hell no. Now, new states, this is section 1 or section 3, clause 1. How does a state become admitted to the union? Only Congress can admit states. That's the Senate and that's the House. Clause 2, Congress will make laws for all U.S. territories. Now, what is a U.S. territory? U.S. territories are areas that were basically purchased by the United States or taken by the United States, like, let me give you an example. Guam, American Samoa, Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. Some of the Virgin Islands, they're U.S. territories. And although they have their own, they might have some of their own laws. They basically come under laws of the United States, although they don't vote in United States elections. Yes, people of Puerto Rico. And I know the Democrats want Puerto Rico to become a state, but they will not become a state. Puerto Rico doesn't pay taxes. That's right. All of the islands, like your Guams, your American Samoas, they don't pay taxes to the United States, but they are under United States law. Section 4, guarantees of the state. Federal government guarantees each state a republic. Representative democracy, where we elect officials to represent our concerns. The government will protect us from invasions. Now, this is what you need to understand. When you hear the word democracy, well, when you hear Democrats and some of the Republicans talk about democracy, well, they're talking about majority rules. No, we have a representative democracy. We elect our government officials. We're not like a Russia or China. This is why we don't have people like Putin in power or Xi in power, because we have a representative. That's what I'm talking about, putting our democracy. We're not a democracy, we're a republic, but we elect our officials. That's why our officials need to get on board by understanding the people. Article 5, methods of amendments. First method, need 2/3 of Congress to propose an amendment. Second method, need 2/3 of state legislatures to ask Congress for a national convention to propose an amendment. This method has never been used. Need 3/4 of all states to actually ratify or approve an amendment. This is done by state legislatures or a special ratifying convention. So over 4,000 proposed amendments since the early 1800s have been sent out. Only 27 have been ratified. And when we talk about amendments, there are 27 amendments in the Constitution. And what I just told you, this is how you amend the Constitution. Now, the first 10 amendments were package deal. 18 and 21 cancel each other out. These 15 separate amendments that went through the process. Article 6, general provisions, section 1. Could the new government evade debts owed as a result of the Revolutionary War? New government can't evade old debts. Section 2, is the federal law the supreme law of the land? Yes, state law cannot override a federal law. Section 3, all officers, state and federal, must take an oath to support the United States Constitution, not have a religious requirement as part of the oath. Article 7 is ratification. Section 1, convention, calling of delegates from each state to ratify the Constitution. Must have 9 states to approve the Constitution. And closure. Constitution was finished September 17th of 1787. 55 total delegates during the convention. Again, 55 total delegates during the convention. 42 were present on the final day, but only 39 people signed the Constitution. The following 2 years provided debate for ratification. The United States Constitution took effect April 30th of 1789, when George Washington was sworn in as the first president. George Washington was sworn in as the first president. But what I've given you is information on the Constitution, how it works. But you have a number of people who really, today, they don't abide by the Constitution, particularly the Democratic Party. In fact, they've gone way left of the Constitution. Now, let me get into this Donald Trump, Elon Musk situation. Now, I'm going to put my take on it right now. I believe it's just another ploy so the Democrats can have something to talk about, just to distract them, because the Democrats, they will pick up a feather if Donald Trump puts it in his nose and talk about it all day, because they have nothing going on for themselves. Now, the back and forth going on between Elon Musk and Donald Trump, I'm pretty sure they will work everything out. Now, to me, it's a distraction. And, you know, when Elon Musk said Jeffrey Epstein had something on him, well, this was way back in 1992, and he was in jail and then he checked out. But they don't have anything on Donald Trump. Bottom line is, what has happened is this bill that came out, and I haven't seen the bill. I'm trying to find the bill, but with each bill that goes out, there's going to be some type of spending. It could be discretionary spending, but there's some entities where you do need more money, like for your defense. You have to have a strong military, especially these days. But is a $400 million plane, should that be put in the bill? No, that shouldn't be put in the bill. Should they cut the Department of Education? Yeah. Send the Department of Education back to the states. And when you have the Democrats out there talking about, well, the Democrats are saying that Donald Trump wants to cut welfare. No, he wants able-bodied people to work for their welfare, to work for their Medicare. To me, it's nothing wrong with honest work. You have too many people who are living off the government, but for the most part, the Democrats want to give all of the illegals everything free so they will vote for them. Now, I'm going to give you an example on why New York is a Democratic state, why Democrats vote. Well, if you look at New York and Florida, Florida has a budget that's much lower than New York. New York's budget is about 251 million. 251 million. That's what they need to operate off of. But if you look at Florida, they operate off of right around 115 million. And you have a lot more people who are going down there to Florida than in New York. Well, why is New York's budget so high? That's because New York is giving everybody free stuff. That's the problem. You can't keep giving away the goodies to people who aren't putting, like Joe Biden said, skin in the game. That's the problem. And a lot of New Yorkers are going to keep putting people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in. This is why you need to watch this video and watch this channel, because I'm giving you the education so you're getting it free from me, and you don't even have to go to school to learn civics. You're learning about the Constitution right here. But the bottom line is, you have a lot of dumb Americans out there. Americans vote on emotion. They vote on symbology. They talk about the economy. Many Americans don't even know about the economy. They're employees. That's all most of them are. They don't understand how business works because many of them never owned a business. Yeah, you have people who say, well, they got a business. Well, what are you doing in your business? What kind of tax laws are you following? Because if I came and ordered your books and you're working on OnlyFans, where's your money going? Let me see your books. If you have a business, it's got to be reported and registered to that state that you reside in. You have to have a state ID and you have to have a federal ID. And this is what people don't tell you. They think they are giving you all this information about, I have a business, I'm an entrepreneur. You hear some of those women on the Kendra G show say that. They don't own businesses, they're doing OnlyFans and they're getting cash apps. But again, with Elon Musk and Trump, I am one that's not going to go into that too much because it's a wait and see moment. And my best bet, it's all a ploy. It is. You have a number of the Democrats that aren't very, very smart people, and they don't have anything to run on. And the mainstream media, the talking heads out there, they're gonna tell you what you want to hear. You got the Roland Martins out there who believe that when you don't listen to the mainstream media, you're not listening to facts. Well, the mainstream media never gives you facts; they give you lies every day because they're paid talking heads. Now, when you listen to people like me, I always say this: I'm giving you information based on what I've researched, but you need to check the information out for yourself. That's how you get educated because everything I'm going to put out there might not necessarily be right, like numbers. If I put numbers out there, numbers change every day. Just because you give a stat out doesn't mean that that statistic is right. Yes, there are exceptions to the rule, but giving statistics out, I'll give an example. You have a number of people, I know on some of the black YouTubers, they try to mention the word mean and median when many of them really don't know what it means. Okay, now let me tell you what a mean is. And I've done statistics. A mean is when you take an average. That's a mean. Like if I had numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, well, if I add all those numbers up and I divide them by the amount of numbers that I have 4 numbers. But if I add all those numbers up, I get 10. But I have 4 numbers, I'm going to divide by 4 and get 2.5. Now, if I have the median, 1, 2, 3, 4, well, I'm going to take the 2 middle numbers and I'm going to add them up. And I'm going to get 2 plus 3. And then I'm going to get 5. And I'm going to divide that by 2. And I'm going to get 2.5. That's my median. That's why they call it the median. And then you have your standard deviation. And your standard deviation is basically when you square the mean. And then there's a variance where you take the square root of the standard deviation. I believe I'm doing this right from my head. So there are a lot of people out there, just because you quote numbers, all numbers aren't right. You need to have some historical data. You need to look at the trends of the data. A number of people do not know how to look at data. They are trying to prove a point. And just because you look in Google on something, it doesn't mean it's right either. I was watching a debate yesterday between, I think his name was Andrew and some feminist woman. And she said that millions of Indians were killed by white people. Well, when I fact checked it, and when Andrew fact checked it, it wasn't millions, it's about 4,000. A number of your Indians died from diseases. Now she went in there and tried to fact check, and then when he tried to say, no, 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 address that. And this is why when it comes to women, these feminist women, they have a lot of big mouths, but they really don't know what they're talking about. They want to argue. They do not know how to debate. They don't want to take facts. And when you criticize them, they want to get loud. They want to curse you out. That's because they have nothing to come back with. And then a lot of the men. This is why, as a man, I don't want to associate with the Democratic Party. Um, you look at Kendra G. She's got this simp guy named Russ and these other simps on her show to try to put in the man's point of view, but basically they're really following the women. And that is a problem in society as well. You got too many simps in the Democratic Party. They're weak men. They really don't have anything to offer, and they want to put that cape on for the women. Meanwhile, the women are disrespecting them as well. That's a big problem. And shout out to people like Corey Holcomb, who's telling the truth out there. In the black community, the black church is dead. It's nothing but a bunch of women. And these women aren't going to build anything. And yes, as a man, you need to be productive. I can't fuck with you if you're not productive. I can't. You got to be productive. I mean, if I ask you, okay, what are you doing? If you're following your woman, and Corey put it out there right, very perfectly. What if a woman makes more money than me? That's fine. I'm still going to go out and make my money. That's her money. That's her money. But just because she makes more money doesn't make her better than me. I'm going to make my own money because I still have to be productive. Now, she may tell the guy that, no, you don't have to, you don't have to go out. No, I don't believe that. Bump that. I'm going to go out and work because I don't want her coming back saying, I did this for you. I did that for you. Now I control you. No, not going to happen, Captain. Bottom line is, as a man, you need to get up there. You need to make your own money. You need to produce. Because if you're under a woman, you're not building anything. In fact, she's not even going to give you anything. And, I watch, certain shows on TV. The number of women they want to be catered to, but they don't want to put any effort into giving their resources away when it comes to tipping. I know that men and even men who are sweet out there, they leave pretty good tips. When I watch shows like Below Deck, yeah, you get a number of, particularly African American women, they want you to do everything for them and they complain. Like there was one woman who complained about small garbage that she could have picked up. Complain. And, we have a lot of people here in this country who are delusional. They live under arrested development. They think they know everything about politics. They don't know anything about politics. Bottom line is they watch too much of the mainstream media and they're not getting educated. Again, there's another sister out there that says black men need to go out and get educated. So, and the way she said it, she said, we need to take out a loan. Well, why would we want to do what you're doing when you have debt? And most of these degrees that black women have, they're no good anyway. You see, a number of the sisters had all these government jobs. That was their biggest biggest resource of employment. Yeah, you have some of them making money off of businesses, but most of them fail. The bottom line is Trump is starting to cut some of these government programs, which he should. We have too many able-bodied people and illegals, because you have the Democrats out there and some of the citizens, particularly in some of these liberal states. They don't want ICE to deport anybody. So when you have conditioned half the country to be stupid, there's where the issue is. When you care more about foreigners than your own citizens, you got a problem. And it's a bad one. And you have many people. Like I saw this video where they had this large, walrus-looking white woman and a sweet-ass man. And they have what we call Sam, speaking for American men. You can't speak for American men. You're never going to get true American men back to the Democratic Party. It's never going to happen. We don't want to be the party of transgender. We don't want to be within the party of feminism. Go get the simp men. We want to be the party of production, common sense. And another word before I get back on the other topic of Sam, independent. And you might say you're independent, but if you're voting Democrat all the time, you're not independent. You may have registered as an independent, but you're still voting for leftist policies. You look at Bernie Sanders. He's an independent, but he still votes with the Democrat. So guess what? In my humble opinion, he's a Democrat, but he's more to the left as a socialist and a communist. But speaking for American men, well, you're not going to speak to us when you keep telling us you're better than we are. We've built everything, but you want to talk shit like you built it. We've given you this false power. A number of you women disrespect men. A number of you say you don't need a man. A number of you also believe that men are trash because of all your feminist ladies out there who told you men aren't productive and you're productive. And you know, there was one woman who called Anthony Bryan Logan's show and said, "Well, I know how to put a roof on." Well, she acts like nobody else has done it. And when it comes to balance, I like how the Democrats talk about, or the feminists talk about balance when they really don't want any balance. In fact, the feminists really don't want equality. What they really want is they want to be victims as a woman, but they want male power. In other words, they want to continue to straddle the fence. Why? Because they avoid all accountability and responsibility. A number of women are children. They're in arrested development, even when they're out there on a dating scene. Many of them, they don't live in the real world. They've been given artificial power through DEI and affirmative action. And that's particularly most of the white women. In fact, most of the women who are bitching are the white women. And they talk about going to college, and many of them are in debt. And in my humble opinion, just that a number of women, they just don't add anything. They love to have an opinion thinking that gives them power. But I look at what you do, not what you say. And the bottom line is they don't want to hear what a man has to say. So with all that being said, you want to, and you talk about spending money. Well, you look at Harris spent quite a bit of money. It's $1 billion. And now the Democrats, $20 million. So people can come speak to men, and you're going to have a fat, walrus, ugly white woman and a sissified white man come speak to us? The fuck out of here. We're not going to listen to that. But that's the bottom line. They still haven't gotten the message yet, and they will never get the message. They're not going to get men. You're going to get the simps. You're going to get the white knights. That's all you're going to get. And once you throw them under the bus, you're just going to be a party of a bunch of leftist, ugly women. That's all you're going to be. Ones that have the big mouths, ones that are like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Yes, she may have the looks, but she's stupid. And people like Jasmine Crockett. You want those individuals running your party? Can you imagine her being president? Listen, I know the dumb New Yorkers are going to vote for her. Now, Texas is a little smarter. Jasmine Crockett better be careful. Now, if she's in the Dallas area, you know the niggas are going to vote for her. The niggers are going to vote for anybody that's black. You look at the shit show that's going on in Chicago. You know, after Beetlejuice left, they bring in this guy, this nut, Johnson. Baltimore has a nut. And those cities are still messed up. Still messed up. Well, that's what happens when you vote on symbolism. You vote on delusion. And those blue cities, they're losing citizens. I mean, I remember at one time, Baltimore was like the 8th most populated city in the 70s. Now they topped out in the 50s and 60s, right around 950,000. Now they're down to maybe 570,000. So basically, in the last 70 years, half the population from Baltimore is left. And now you have cities like Indianapolis and Jacksonville and Columbus, Ohio, Charlotte. They're over Baltimore. But the bottom line is you have all these radical leftists. They don't like America. They like everything that we're against. Now, like I said, I have nothing against the alphabet community. I don't have anything against them. But I will say this: if you're looking for special privileges because of sexual orientation, you're not going to get them. Well, that's something you decide to do. Now, if you're black, okay, should we get some kind of reparations? We're never going to get reparations. Now, what I believe we should get, since we have paid taxes, maybe we should get some type of tax break, some type of free education. We should get something. But I know we're never going to get anything on the verge of a check. Be too much money. But should we get something? Absolutely. The Jews got something. The Japanese got something. Hell, they got their whole damn country built after we bombed it. The bottom line, they did. But in the end, I'm just going to say this: as people out here, you know, you got to wake up, and you got to turn off the TV, turn off the View, turn off the alphabet channels, turn off the cable TV channels. The bottom line is, you have a number of people out here who really, they don't know what's going on. They think they know what's going on. They're talking heads, and that's all they do is talk. I mean, even Fox News, I don't trust them. You know, Newsmax is okay, but I look at Newsmax and a number of people that were at Fox, like Greta Van Susteren and James Rosen, Dick Morris, well, they were all at Fox, and they're now at Newsmax. The only one that has left Fox, those two people that have left Fox, that are actually doing good on their own and they're not working for any network, or Tucker Carlson and Bill O'Reilly. On News Nation, Chris Cuomo, they're trying to make a balance of that. And now I'm also checking out the New York mayoral race. And Andrew Cuomo, I hate to say it, but you New Yorkers are going to vote for him, particularly the blacks. They love Cuomo. He's going to become the next mayor of New York after he was ousted from being a governor for some sexual allegations. So he's going to be back in politics again. He's going to be your governor of New York. This is what you New Yorkers are voting for. You're voting for sleaze. Because the only one, in my humble opinion, a Bloomberg ran New York pretty good. Rudy Giuliani. He ran it excellent during his time. But this guy that got Eric Adams, well, he's done. He's definitely done. He may have to change parties. But the bottom line is, you have to stop listening to mainstream media. You have to understand how the market works. You can't listen to what people are telling you. Figure it out yourself. I guarantee a lot of individuals don't understand what a stock split is. They don't understand what par value is. Now, the way to understand stocks, if I start off with a valuation of $2 million, and that stock splits two ways, well, what's going to happen? Well, that stock is going to split two ways. But if I start off and I'm paying $500,000 for some stock, well, how am I going to get the par value of that stock? Well, basically, if it's going to split, I'm going to take that 500,000 and multiply it by two because it's splitting 2 to 1, and I'm going to get 1 million. And then I'm going to take that value. Let's say if I'm paying $4 a share for it, well, I'm gonna multiply that 1 million by $4 a share, and then or is it when it splits, it's gonna split in half. So I'm end up paying a lower price, but I'm gonna have more shares. That's how stock works for the most part. And then there's reverse stock where it can go the other way. People don't know about that, you know. But the bottom line is you have people that are listening to all these entertainers. They are listening to these pundits out here, and all these pundits, they want to tell you what you want to hear. Now, I don't care if you are really left or right. I'm just going to call things in a realistic point of view. Bottom line is you have to understand how the world works. And once you understand how the world works and grow up a little bit, because we have a society that is, in my humble opinion, is not grown up. They're still children, and children live in delusion. A number of people believe they're going to be young forever. They're not going to be young forever. And you have, you have all these feminists, you have all these activists telling you how to live your life. And that's why the Democrats right now are destroyed. Now, there's some Republicans who are destroyed as well. I'm just going to say this. If you're really going to be free, you have to think for yourself. And you have a number of people who they have to follow somebody. They can't follow their own man at home. They want to follow a whole bunch of cackling women. And that's what a number of women do. You have a number of men. Some of them are lazy. Some of the men want to follow women. And then they wonder why they're not respected by women. And I just say it, we have a lot of double standards in this country. We do. But see, the problem is when it comes to men and women, men have always had to be traditional while women were allowed to change with the times. And women still expect men to pay for a date. Number one, I will say this, like I did say, I was going to talk about other topics in this video. When it comes to dates out here, you shouldn't be paying for love. Woman either likes you or she doesn't like you. And had we known that as early Gen Xers, we would have been better off. All of us have simped at one time because we didn't know any better. We were naive. If you are going to have somebody in your life and they're not going to be part of the relationship and they got their hand out, you got to put the scissors out and cut them loose because they're going to drain you. That's what I believe. You need individuals who are going to live in the real world. All this power couple shit, everybody's not Jay-Z and Beyonce. Say that for somebody else. Bottom line is, man, you got to be the leaders. Because women aren't going to go and invent anything. Men have to do it. But also men, you can't be voting Democrat either. The time you vote Democrat, you're voting for the losing side. But the losing side they claim that they're the smartest, they're the dumbest. Now, there's nothing wrong with having liberal views. However, I'm talking to you women, just because you can do something that a man does, like put up a roof, doesn't mean you're great at it. It just means you can do it. Because there are a lot of things that women can do that I can do. I can cook. I can clean. Then we don't get credit for doing what women used to do. We've taken the domestic job of cooking and become millionaires. Number of women, they want to get credit for doing what they should do, what they should be doing. Not going to happen. It's not how it works. In this country, I'm just going to say this: if you don't like the capitalistic system, don't live here. You are looking for communism, go ahead and live in a communist country. See how you like it. You want to live under Pol Pot? Live under Chi? You want to live under Putin? Go ahead. But I guarantee you, you don't have any democracy over there. No democracy. It's all dictatorship. A lot of you Democrats sound like you want tyranny. You claim that Donald Trump wants tyranny. No, he's trying to change the culture. You all want a bullshit culture that you're telling us to follow, that we don't believe in. And we're the will of the people. But you're trying to force us to believe in your Marxism and your communism. We're not going to do it. When I see a party that's run by women in alphabet communities, sweet men, I'm not going to follow that party. That's like driving a car off a cliff. They're about their feelings. I'm not about feelings. I'm about solving problems, common sense. So, as I conclude, I just want to say this. When it comes to educating yourself, you don't need a degree. If you are on Black YouTube and you hear a Black woman talk about you need to go spend money to get an education, you do not need to do that. Most of the degrees that they get are all useless degrees. They've always been useless degrees. It's just that they have gotten on these television channels from the 90s on now to tell you how much better than Black men they are because they got some bullshit degree. They're not getting in, and you don't even need to get a degree in STEM these days. What you need to do is educate yourself. And just because you pick up a book, it's because you see something in a book. Doesn't mean that it's right either. You have to look at what you see in a book and compare it to what's going on out here. That's why you have to have your eyes and ears open. And again, I always tell you, just because you quote a number, it doesn't mean that that number is right. You have to know how to analyze the data. You have to look at the trends of the data. Basically, everything is pulled from the census because that's the best data of them all. Now, even the census isn't 100% accurate, and the census is taken every 10 years. And they do that so they can gerrymander some of these districts. And this is why the Democrats want to get all the illegals in right now. So by 2030, when they have a lot of illegals, they can count the illegals into the census, particularly in a lot of these blue states, and they can turn some of the red states into purple states so that everybody in the Democratic areas of the red states and all the blue states can give the illegals freebies. And freebies, once they give them freebies, they're buying votes. That's how the Democrats win everything. They buy it. And the Democrats want to treat foreign nationals better than they want to treat Americans. Bottom line, I have to ask you, Americans, why are you taking up for all these illegals, particularly the criminals? And you're an average American citizen. And you have a number of individuals out here who are illegals. They were getting bigger welfare checks than you're getting and free health care, living better than you are, and they weren't even born here. And the funny thing about these illegals here, well, they want to patronize their country while they're here, but they won't go patronize their country while they're at home. But they want to come up here with that rah-rah shit, telling you how great their country is. Well, if their country's so great, why don't they go back? That's what kills me with some of these illegals. I mean, they want to raise their flag up here, raise it in my face, telling me their country's so great. Why are you here then? See, they don't want to go back and deal with that government that they have, that dictatorship. They don't want to go deal with those cartels. But they sure want us to believe how good their country is. But you're here. And that's the hypocrisy that I'm exposing. And in the end, I'm just going to say this. You need to understand how the real world works. Get off the delusion, grow up, stop believing in lies and the deception. Because if you keep believing the lies and the deception, you'll never get anywhere because you're letting somebody do the thinking for you. Be your own man and be your own woman. Think for yourself. Because once you learn how to think for yourself and you understand how the world works, that's when you understand the power that you have. Why? Because knowledge is power. The only way you become powerful is you have to gain knowledge. And then you put that knowledge into action. If you're going to be a sheep, you're a follower. You go right in the slaughterhouse and get slaughtered because you're letting somebody else validate you. Don't let anybody validate you on a job. You don't let anybody validate you when it comes to politics. When I talk about true independence, self-sufficiency, it's about thinking for yourself. And I say, think for yourself, stay off the plantation, and you're going to have a lot of naysayers. They're going to call you names. Let them call you names because they're jealous of you, and they're going to call you, particularly the blacks. I get more bull crap from blacks. Why? Because they're always going to be on the plantation because they follow other people. They're not free thinkers. And this has nothing to do with being Democrat or Republican. This has to do with using your mind, looking at how the real world is working. And once you understand how the real world works, there are no surprises. But in the end, always be a free thinker. Why? When you have knowledge, you have power. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're looking for some STEM content, you check out my second channel, the QCIS channel. And on that channel, give you a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. Now, here's where you can find me. On my main channel right here on the 401 Talk Zone radio show, you can find me on YouTube, Rumble, X, formerly Twitter, and Truth Social. And for the QCIS channel, you can find me right here on YouTube, find me on X, formerly Twitter, and of course, LinkedIn. And I'm basically thinking about changing the dates that I do my videos. I was doing my 401 Talk Zone radio show videos on Wednesday. I'm thinking about going to Friday or Saturday. I'm thinking about doing my STEM videos probably Saturday and Sunday because it's much easier and I can get my thoughts together and I don't have to get up and go to work the next day. So, again, if a number of you are offended by what I just said tonight, maybe you need to get your act together. And again, don't look at success as material. A number of people think because they got material items that they've made it. And this is why I came up with this. Always be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Know that the sun always rises in the east and sets in the west. And if it doesn't apply, let it fly. But if the shoe fits, wear it. If you don't like the shoe, then change it. And once again, thank you for listening to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. I want you all to have a wonderful and gracious evening. God bless you. I'm out.